This is a message from my client, Eric. On the first call that I hopped on with Eric, he was telling me that his dates felt super platonic and just boring, and like there was no energy that was being created or any chemistry on the date. And he would repeatedly, time and time again, get the same text messages from girls that were saying that they felt no chemistry. Now, Eric didn't know why this was. He didn't know if it was the girl's fault or his fault or the universe's fault. He had no idea. But when Eric mastered the art of knowing what to say at every point of the interaction, from the very first approach to the date, to the second date, to the third date, everything changed for him, and he just went on one of the best dates that he's ever had in his life. And these amazing dates that Eric has been going on lately aren't a result of just a different girl that's a better fit for him. The biggest reason why the dates that he goes on now, he feels so much chemistry with these girls, he feels this energy, and the girls are actually interested in him and want to go on another date, is because he learned how to actually spark attraction in the conversation on the date and how to navigate that conversation effortlessly on that date. Now, most guys, when they approach a girl or they're on a date with the girl, shit, even when they're on the phone with the girl, they activate this interview mode, which literally looks like an interview. It's just question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. And this kills all the energy in your interactions and makes you seem like some boring robot AI dude that's reading off a script. So today I'm going to be teaching you what the elite top 1% of men in dating don't want you to know. Because truthfully, if you knew what I was about to tell you, it would create a lot more competition for those top 1% guys. Specifically today, we're going to be going over exactly what to say at every point of an interaction. So you're actually pushing the connection forward to a date, to a second date, a third date, to pulling, without having a loss of words or getting nervous or not knowing what to say. And if you can master these 3 key components that I'm about to give you, you're going to be able to give so much value, be so present in your interactions, that you are going to separate yourself from 99% of men in dating. And you'll be one step closer to finally achieving your desired dating life. Now, I know what you're thinking. Who is this random black man that looks like a child in a white shirt talking about dating? My name's Chris Goldie, and at this point, I've helped over 150 men totally transform their dating lives without having to drastically change anything physically, financially, or geographically. And over the last 4 years, after trying out hundreds of different ways to navigate approaches, dates, maneuvering the conversation with women in general, I was able to figure out what works and what doesn't. And I've condensed everything that you need to know to be able to maneuver a conversation to a date, to a second date, to pulling the girl into these 3 key components. Firstly, let's talk about observations, which are a key component for your verbals when you're actually approaching a girl. Making an observation is simply observing something about that girl or about the environment or about the context and making a statement about it confidently. Now, it sounds super insignificant, but you need to understand that you making observations subconsciously conveys that you're actually present in the interaction rather than inside your head and just thinking about what you need to say next. Most guys kind of have a script in their head of where they're going to take the conversation, how they're going to navigate it to get a number or a date. But if you're making a spontaneous observation of just something that you actually noticed, it shows that you're actually present in the real world and not in your head thinking of what to do next. So the 3-step process to making an observation is first to look, 2 to notice, and then 3 to confidently make a statement. So for example, you see a girl that has some really insane curly hair. A simple observation could be, I never see girls with hair like that. This could also be something as simple as noticing a tattoo she has or an article of clothing she's wearing. You really don't need to overcomplicate this. It's pretty straightforward. Now, the reason why, believe it or not, so many guys have such a hard time just being present in interactions and making observations is because they're too overstimulated with all the stuff going on around them and all the stuff that's going on in their head. So the best way to get more comfortable with making these live, spontaneous observations is to start meditating or taking some time to just lay down and look at the ceiling. You need to get out of your own head so you can actually be present in the interaction and not thinking about yourself. And the thing is, you can really make these observations at any point of any interaction. Whenever you genuinely notice something, say it. And at times when you get stuck in a conversation and you don't know what to say, making an observation whenever you actually notice something can be a straightforward way to revive that conversation. The second key component, and this is actually my favorite to utilize myself, is assumptions. Now, assumptions flip the energy entirely of the interaction and it gives her something to react to, which, if done right, is going to create a degree of an emotional response. And since you're making this assumption and she's responding to it, it subconsciously lays down that frame that you lead, she follows. So the formula to actually delivering these assumptions is to first just sense something about her, whether that's her vibe, her career, her occupation, her hobbies, whatever it is. The second thing you want to do is assume boldly, and the third thing you want to do is actually deliver it with confidence. You don't want to sound like you're unsure about the assumption that you make. Stand on what you say and deliver it with confidence and conviction. So there's different types of assumptions that you can use here. A positive assumption can be something like, you seem super spontaneous and open-minded. Am I wrong? And that obviously has a positive connotation associated with it, and she's either going to confirm, deny, or elaborate on that assumption that you made. You could also try to challenge a bit and do a negative assumption. So a negative assumption can be something like, I feel like you're a terrible texter. Am I right or am I wrong? Or something like, I feel like you break men's hearts. Am I right or am I wrong? Or it can be more of a role or an occupation-based assumption, like, you seem like you're like a boss woman. Do you run your own business? Assumptions are really a cheat code when it comes to your approaches, your dates, even texting, any interaction with the woman, because she's forced to either confirm, deny, or elaborate. And basically any one of those outcomes can actually be positive, because you can use that to further the conversation, or even use it to revive the conversation if it dies at some point. And if your assumption is playful enough or it's polarizing enough, it's guaranteed to create an emotional reaction. So for example, obviously do not say this word for word unless you're very socially calibrated. If I'm talking to a girl and I actually just get the vibe that she doesn't have a good relationship with her father, and I say, I feel like you don't have a great relationship with your father, I'm almost guaranteed to get an emotional reaction. Maybe it's positive, maybe she's laughing, maybe it's negative, she gets offended, but it's going to create an emotional reaction. The conversation is not going to be boring. And that emotional connection that gets created, that tension, that is chemistry. People just don't know how to explain it, but that is the feeling of chemistry. So if you're lacking chemistry on your dates, make more playful assumptions. Another thing to keep in mind is that if you make an assumption that's extremely bold and maybe a bit too harsh, and she actually ends up getting offended, you don't need to freak out and apologize. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. Just slowly calibrate back. You can say that you were joking, you can apologize for a second, and then move on with the conversation. For most guys nowadays that are actually socially calibrated to a degree and can read when a girl is uncomfortable, you're better off taking it too far than not far enough. The third key component are spontaneous improvised questions and statements. Now, a lot of guys are just gonna go question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. It's boring. You can't even blame her for flaking on you for the second date. Instead, if you're gonna ask questions, make sure that they're genuine, make sure that they're spontaneous, make sure that they're not scripted. And when you get an answer to that question that you are genuinely curious about, get her to elaborate on that answer. Continuously get the girl to elaborate on her answers to your questions so you can actually have a much deeper conversation, which is going to build a deeper connection with that girl. Rather than the surface level, where are you from? How old are you? What do you do for work? You gotta understand, most guys talk like that and it's boring. And it's just another reason why most guys simply just can't succeed right now with modern dating. So an improvised question is really just a question that you're thinking of from the top of your head. Something that you are genuinely curious about in the moment. So for example, you go up to a girl because you think she's attractive, you're looking at her and she seems pretty mixed, so you don't know her background. A spontaneous question is actually asking what her background is because you're genuinely curious. Similar to the observations, this shows that you're actually present. You're not scripting it, you're not AI, you're a human being and you're actually curious about what you're observing in the moment. Now, a spontaneous improvised statement specifically is a cheat code that most guys don't know about, and the top 1% of men do not want you to know about this. An improvised statement is essentially when you have a two-sentence statement. The first sentence you know what you're gonna say, the second sentence you don't know what you're gonna say, and you have to allow your brain to fill in the gaps. So for example, a lot of the time when I'm out, I see an attractive girl, I actually have nothing to say at the top of my head. So I say, excuse me, I wanted to talk to you. And then I let my brain fill in the rest. So excuse me, I wanted to talk to you. I just noticed you and I thought you were super attractive. Excuse me, I wanted to talk to you. I noticed that tattoo and I really liked it. And on a very subconscious level, this demonstrates spontaneity, that you're comfortable in your own skin. You don't need to pre-script any opener. You can just speak from the top of your head. Another example of an improvised statement that I like to use is saying, I really want to know something about you. But in my head, I actually don't know what I'm going to say for the second sentence. So I just let my brain fill in the gaps naturally. I really want to know where you got that smile. I really want to know where you got this fashion sense from. I really want to know what your background is. I really want to know if I can hit on you right now. Whatever it is, the whole point is that you're opening your mind to being spontaneous. You're making the first sentence, but you actually don't have a second sentence prepared. And this trains your mind to just think on the spot and actually fill in the gaps when you don't exactly know what to say. Now you understand the three fundamental components to actually maneuvering conversation from a cold approach to a date, from a date to another date. But what are the topics you're actually going to use to make these observations, these assumptions, these improvised questions and statements? You got to understand there's really endless stuff for you to talk about. For example, you can talk about her appearance. An assumption can be, you look like you have a 2-hour skincare routine. You can talk about her fashion. You look like you have have a stylist. You can talk about her hobbies. You look like you ride horses. I feel like you ride horses as a hobby. You can talk about her dreams, the kind of lifestyle she wants to live. I feel like you're super spontaneous. I know you're gonna be one of those girls that's just traveling the world all the time. You can talk about her race, her background, her nationality. What is that accent? I feel like you're from Colombia. You can talk about her occupation. I feel like you're a lawyer. You're kind of dressed like a lawyer right now. You can talk about her vibe or the energy that she's giving off. You give off this really peaceful energy. I feel like you go to church every Sunday. There's literally infinite topics that you can talk about. You're never actually gonna run out of conversation. Now, a common mistake that guys make, again, is just going interview mode. And what this does is it single threads the conversation. And again, when you're asking surface level questions and you're not getting her to elaborate on her answers to those questions, you're gonna have a surface level conversation and a surface level connection and a surface level date. You're literally gonna have more of an interview than an actual date. So a pro tip here that I can give you is to multi-thread the conversation rather than single threading it. So for example, if I ask the open-ended question of where are you from? And a girl says she's from Colombia, some guy might just say, oh, cool, I'm from Toronto. What I'm going to do is make her elaborate on her answer, and I'm also going to multi-thread the conversation. So I can say, oh, how long have you been in Toronto for? Do you prefer Toronto or Colombia? That way there's two ways that the conversation can go, and the stronger thread is going to survive. Instead of having one weak thread, I've essentially opened up more branches for the conversation to go. So there's a much lesser likelihood that the conversation prematurely fizzles out. Another common mistake that guys make is just using rehearsed lines that they saw on Instagram or TikTok or wherever. Yes, some of the openers that you see are funny and you can definitely use them, but just remember that authentic observations, authentic openers are always going to work better. To women, it's literally the difference between them talking to ChatGPT 5 and an actual human being. And the third common mistake that I see a lot of guys make is they just don't listen to the girl when she's talking. They're always thinking about, what do I need to say next? How can I get this number? How can I get this date? They're never actually listening and present to the woman that is in front of them because they're too busy thinking about what they can take from the girl. So be more present in the interaction, approach with a genuinely curious frame, like you want to know more about her. And if you can actually listen to what she's saying and you're somewhat interested, it's going to be a lot easier for you to make authentic observations, assumptions, improvised questions and statements, and your connection with her is going to be a lot more authentic. So if you watch till the end of this video, it's time to drop the old version of you. Stop going into interview mode whenever you're approaching a girl or on a date, because ultimately if you are doing that, just know that you're the reason that that interaction isn't becoming something meaningful. Start implementing these observations, assumptions, these improvised questions and statements, and watch how your dating life begins to transform. It's time for my CTA. So listen, if you're a socially anxious or introverted guy who's in his 20s, 30s, or 40s, and you've been struggling to actually approach women, talk to women, navigate your dates, actually attract the ideal woman for you, click the link in the description and we'll hop on a call and see how we can help you and transform your dating life, just like we did for Eric and countless others. If not, that's all good as well. I hope you found this video valuable.